I'm Summer with Blue Horizons Project. We work with the City of Asheville and Buncombe County towards their 100% renewable goal by 2042.
I'm Gillie, and I own the store we're sitting in, Ware. It is a refill shop and low-waste living essentials store.
Awesome. So we at Blue Horizons Project thought this would be a cool crossover to work with a local business on this video and kind of talk about how zero waste affects emissions in production and trash, and how individual action plays a part. Because with zero waste and the work we do at Blue Horizons, it tends to be kind of individual, community-based. So to get started, tell me about your personal sustainability journey and kind of what led you to open Ware.
I came by a lot of this very naturally. I grew up in Asheville with a mom who was into holistic medicine and living, and all of that is very closely tied to awareness of environmental impact and things like the toxicity in plastics and stuff like that. And so I've been acutely aware of a lot of these things, whether by choice or by proxy, since I was very young. And I applied them for the most part to my life, but it's not something I knew that I wanted to work in directly, at least not in the consumer part of it. I've always been very interested in supply chains. I ended up going to college for undergrad for sustainable development on a economic development scale, and through personal interests and various career pivots, I ended up starting Ware because I'm more interested in the products and how they got here, and I eventually want to be working more in that realm. But I didn't know the consumer side of it as well, and effectively it's a long-term R&D project. Just working backwards here. So I'm getting to know my customers, getting to know this market, and then I'm working towards being more in the product development side.
Do you feel like most of the customers that come in are pretty aware of the issues in our area? I know when you were downtown, you said you got a lot of tourists, but now...
Yeah, downtown it was a total toss-up. I'd say the locals who came in and people who sought us out, the answer is almost always yes. People who stumble upon us, that's a toss-up. But it just really depends on the customer. We have customers who want to come in and talk, but they're not necessarily looking for advice. They're looking for someone to sympathize with because they're frustrated with the state of the world and the things that they're finding or not finding in the consumer world. And then we have customers who have a lot of questions and they don't know where to start and they want some support. And most people fall somewhere in between. Whether they're here because there's something they're frustrated with, they don't necessarily have all the answers themselves. That's not to say that I do, but I have a lot more of those kinds of answers. And so that's what we tend to share. And I get plenty of leads and tips and advice and tricks from our customers, as many as I give away. So it's a pretty mutually beneficial community.
I think this probably ties into that individual action thing too. With our work, we're going into houses one at a time to weatherize, or we're talking to individuals on their own energy use and efficiency. And zero waste living is an individual thing a lot of times. So do you feel like people ever get frustrated that it's falling on them, or?
Yeah, this is a conversation I have with customers a ton. I don't actually believe in the idea of individual action. I don't think it exists. There's nothing we can do that doesn't impact somebody else in some way or another. Granted, our actions don't necessarily mean someone else is going to follow suit, but it does have influential capacity, right? The reason I'm here opening this store is because my whole life I've gone about living it this way, and people around me have sought advice from me because they've seen that. And so my individual actions were never individual in that sense, and I don't think anybody else's are either. If you don't live alone, you live in a house with other people, you're doing something, it's rubbing off. So I do understand that's not to discount the difference between organizational level action and more like community level action, but I don't think that we don't live in a silo. And so I think it's more of a gradient rather than a binary, the difference between organizational and individual. But also I've had times where I think chicken and egg scenario, but I think it's more of a cart and horse doesn't really work either. Like both have to happen. And I'm preaching to the choir here, but like we know that both absolutely have to happen. The more people we have on board individually before the systemic and organizational changes happen, the faster those transitions will happen at the larger scale. So what we're doing here between Blue Horizons and Ware is certainly a very heavy lift in the sense that we're trying to like in some way or another transition individual lifestyles, which is a difficult conversion process. If you like look at anything, read anything on marketing, they tell you don't ever try to change someone's lifestyles or someone's like habits, just try to change the products they use for them, which I'm not following that advice. Like you guys aren't following that advice. You're not a for-profit, but so it's a little different. But it's an inefficient way to do business, but it's a necessary step. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? I mean, yes, and I think is my yes. We need individual change. Do we need absolutely everyone to change right now? No. Is it helpful that some people are, and the more the better? Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like that philosophy of you're not really doing it individually, like you're influencing others and all that. 'Cause that can probably help avoid the burnout that comes with.
Yeah.
Why am I doing all this when there's a whole
Right.
list of structural, systemic things that need to change?
Absolutely.
So that's cool. So I think just lastly to tie it back to our mission, what does Ware do to embrace, energy efficiency?
A big way. I mean, we rent the space we're in, so there's only so much we can do there. However, we do a lot. I mean, when I moved in, we make sure that all the doors seal up well. We use the fans to circulate air appropriately in the space. I actually have recently ordered clings for our windows that protect against about 98% of heat transfer into the building from our massive windows. So we love having the sunlight. We didn't have that in our old space, but it is an inferno towards the front of the store. The back of the store can be an icebox if we have the air conditioning on, and the front can be an inferno. So things like that are all we can do as renters, or some of the things we do as renters. I don't think that those are negligible because air conditioning is such an issue. Refrigerants are such an issue from a climate change standpoint. But the most of the things that we do in terms of our energy embodiment, so to speak, is the way we source things. And we go local whenever possible. We won't sacrifice quality or function. But anytime we can bring a product or an equivalent product closer to home, we do. And so our local or nearby offering of products is constantly growing, and that's a pretty significant energy contribution from a retail standpoint because our business is also growing, and so people are switching over products that they're buying from other places that are coming from much further to ours every day, and then our products are also getting closer to home every day. So
awesome. Yeah. That was all I had. Do you have anything you wanted to tell the people of YouTube about Ware?
People of YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our refill station is something that we're working on and is growing dramatically. We're starting to bring in, we were now letting folks bring in containers with some pretty strict expectations because we can't become a recycling center. So if people want to contribute to that, they should check it out on our website. We've got all of our refill products, prices, ingredients, all of that. But also, I think something we do differently in that respect is that it's another place where we're sourcing everything as locally as possible. So 80% of our refill products are within a 3-hour drive, made within a 3-hour drive of the store between Durham, Greenville, South Carolina, Asheville, Brevard. So that's kind of atypical for refill stores, and something we're really proud of.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, of course.